Let's talk about you and me. We'll talk about all the good things and the bad things that make me. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about
sex postpartum.
Hi, and welcome to Well Rounded Momma's YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us today. If you find this video helpful, like, subscribe, ring the bell. My name is Sherry. This is Sarah. We're both midwives at Well Rounded Momma, located in Las Vegas, Nevada. Today we're going to talk about sex.
Yes.
After you've had a baby. But you know what? Let's go ahead and talk about whether you can have sex during pregnancy, because I do get that question a lot. You weren't prepared for that, were you?
I wasn't. I've got no notes about it.
You have no notes.
Off the cuff.
Yeah, you can have sex during pregnancy.
Yes.
Moving on.
The whole time.
Unless you're put on pelvic floor rest. And so when you're put on pelvic floor rest, that's what that means is
no hanky-panky.
No sex. So no intercourse if you've been put on pelvic floor rest. And some reasons you would be put on pelvic floor rest is preterm labor, a shortening cervix, that kind of stuff. But yeah, you absolutely can. So let's get into the postpartum that Sarah actually took notes and was prepared to talk about.
Well, first, I just wanted to touch on why women are told to wait 6 weeks. Why should they wait a full 6 weeks?
They should wait 6 weeks.
Well, there you go. Talk about that.
You know, I think it's probably safe to start off with saying why we're bleeding in the first place. A lot of times, because we have menstrual cycles, we are so used to bleeding and thinking it's the shedding of our uterine liner. And so some of us have sex during those menstrual cycles. And so we don't think anything of it.
Yes.
However, when you're bleeding after having a baby, you're actually bleeding because of a wound. So your placenta creates a wound in your uterus, and that's what you're bleeding from. And so you'll notice that some days you might bleed heavier than others, because that's all based on activity and healing. And like if you had that wound on the outside of your leg, you would be quite careful with it. But because I think we bleed menstrually,
we're just used to it.
We're used to it.
Deal.
So that probably dissolves that first misconception of why you're bleeding. And so if you imagine if it's an open wound,
you probably want to try to prevent infection and let that heal. So really just waiting until you're done bleeding and you feel like you've healed and recovered. And for some women that's pretty quickly, and for others it can be up to 6, sometimes up to 8 weeks.
And of course my answer would always be resume intercourse when it feels comfortable for you, not just physically but mentally as well. I think healing has to take place on all levels, right? Healing has to take place emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, all of those things. And so when individuals ask me like if they've resumed intercourse, I always ask, like, do you want to resume intercourse? If that's something that you feel like you're ready for. And so some individuals, after they're done bleeding, they're not ready. And so I think so long as couples are talking about that in a healthy way and that both are understanding and on the same page of that, I think that that's great, right? But from a physical standpoint, the reason why we say 6 to 8 weeks is because that's generally how long it could potentially take. A lot of individuals are done bleeding at actually like 2 weeks. 2 weeks is pretty common number.
Yep, I'd say so. And another little note here is that a lot of women need lots of lubrication.
Bingo.
Not just because you're trying to be like gentle, but actually breastfeeding can affect your slipperiness. That is a thing.
You are dry.
That's hormones.
That's a hormone. While you're breastfeeding, you're generally drier. And so being, you know, partners, if you want your partner to have sex with you, make sure that they're comfortable.
Yep, lots of lube. The reason why I say that is I have definitely seen on like mommy boards and things like that like sometimes people think there's something wrong with them, that they don't want to have intercourse. And it has nothing to do with mood. It actually has a lot more to do with your hormones than anything else. So don't feel bad if you need extra lubrication.
I like your next little star.
You like my next star? Go super slow, lots of foreplay.
Madonna, I think, sums that up the most. The very first
time.
Yes!
that is probably very close to truth right there. But yeah, just go very, very slow. It's almost like being a virgin. Like you do kind of have to like
tender.
rediscover things again. You might not necessarily like the same things that you did before. I also wanted to touch on if you get stitches, kind of what that recovery can look like. If you had stitches from childbirth, depending on how deep that was, sometimes stitches are dissolved by 6 weeks, and sometimes if you've had very extensive tearing and you have very deep stitches, that can actually take up to 12 weeks. So again, just be really,
especially if it went into rectal tissue.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you want that to heal real well. When individuals come back in and are like looking for the go-ahead on that, that really for us is for individuals we've sutured. Whenever someone's been sutured, you kind of want, I think, the go-ahead on that. Like you've healed properly and things look good down there.
You want to be checked out. And if you feel like there's any scar tissue or granulomas or anything like that, there are some things that you can do for that to help that heal. Herbally Grounded carries a product called Angel Oil that we recommend quite often. And you would just use that or like vitamin E oil to just kind of massage that tissue a little bit to help it become a little more pliable and help sex be a little more comfortable. Those are my tips.
So hopefully you found that video helpful. You should share with all of your friends.
All of your friends.
Like, tag. But thanks for joining us. I think it's really important to talk about things that feel like once felt taboo. It's kind of talking about them, and some of that is intercourse after you've had a baby, because there is this kind of stigma around that. Have that conversation with your partner. Be open, be honest, and whenever two individuals are authentic with each other, it's going to work out great. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. I'm going to tell a story.
Tell a story.
I have a story. I feel like Angela Harris is like, there's an herb for that. I feel like here it's like, Sherry has a story for that. I have a story of this client of mine that was carrying twins. And her husband kept being like, I really think when we have sex, I'm hitting the baby's heads. And I'm like, you and every other guy out there.
Right.
Which is you were hitting the top of your kid's head. Well, towards the end of her pregnancy, she asked me to do a vaginal exam.
And the baby's head was down there?
I'm pretty sure he was hitting the top of his baby's head.
That's hysterical.
Yeah. Unless your wife is carrying twins, I think
You're probably fine.
you're probably fine.